So I sit on stage and I don't do slides because I learned that, one, I have speaker and social anxiety. And I asked some of my favorite speakers like how they got over it, and they said to just be authentic and be yourself. And so I've refined my speaking process to where I sit up on stage with a notebook or 3x5 cards in a chair with no slides, and then I'm comfortable speaking to an audience. So thank you for bearing with me. So thank you, 500, for inviting me up here. I'm incredibly honored, and thank you to all of the work that you do. So what I want to talk about today is a trend that I've been seeing, which is really exciting, is that entrepreneurs are thinking big again. And I think that's incredibly important. It's an exciting trend that popped up about 6 months ago, and it was a stark contrast to what I was seeing over the past year and a half. So, at Founders Fund, we see amazing companies, as you can imagine, but we still were seeing, like I'm sure everyone saw Fred Wilson's graph, thousands of companies coming in, we're meeting with thousands of them and trying to figure out and basically find the best out of those batches. And, and all businesses are, great in my opinion. I'm not one of those people that's like, people shouldn't be entrepreneurs or pretend to be entrepreneurs. I even wrote an article called, that I love wantrepreneurs, because I think that, people aspiring to be business people is a good thing. I think it's a lot better than wanting to be like, a basketball player or something that's completely unattainable. Admiring business, I think, is admirable. But just like all businesses, some are more awesome than others. So what's happening? Why are we seeing more of these companies and these founders coming in with really big ideas? If you looked at Fred Wilson's chart, it's kind of jaw-dropping. Has everyone seen it? It's basically like 2007, 2008, and then there's this huge peak of early seed stage capital where, the mid stage and late stage at the bottom actually didn't really move much. As a matter of fact, it's gone down. And so there was this incredible cycle of activity of early stage with no follow-on investment. And now we're starting to see it come back down and go back towards 2007, 2008. So in 2013, the term unicorn was coined by Eileen Lee. And I think it's become so part of our fabric of who we are that I can't tell you how many companies have come and sat in front of me and claimed they're going to be the next unicorn, the next billion-dollar company. And there's only like 230 unicorns. So it became, the statistical rarity became an obsession of ours. Everybody wanted to be a unicorn. Everyone was the next unicorn. Everyone wanted to invest in the next unicorn. So I think that a flurry of that activity actually, I can't prove it, but I think it directly correlates with the hype cycle of the unicorn. So I think, everybody didn't want to mix the next Uber. It's like, if only I write a 50K check into 100 companies, one of them will be Airbnb. One of them will be Uber. So I think the correction is happening. And, lots of angels like myself left early stage investing for the most part. And because things became a little too crazy. I joined Founders Fund not for that reason. It was just the timing was perfect. I worked at AngelList. I was having a lot of fun there. And I guess that sort of sent the international flair that, I'm hireable. And so, Founders Fund sat me down and asked me to join, and I couldn't think of a better firm to join. I was incredibly honored. I'd probably still be at AngelList today if they didn't call me. But I did wind down a lot of my early stage investing, and part of it was because things became too competitive. There were uncapped notes, crazy valuations, epic implosions. It just wasn't good. And you'd think that maybe it would scale if you had all those amazing companies in 2007, 2008, that it would scale with all of those, that maybe you would get twice as many of those good companies, but it didn't actually turn out that way. Thousands and thousands of companies had very little viability. So what I'm seeing now is that the vintage of 2007, 2008, they're starting to show up, and they're taking another swing again at another opportunity. And I have about 6 companies so far at Founders Fund that I've invested in, and all but 3 that I'm going to talk about are stealth. And the stealth ones are kind of like my rare Pokemon. I'm collecting them, and I'm sure people in the audience have their rare Pokemon too, and they're not sharing them with anyone else. Gone are the days of the exuberant partying, especially launch parties. Gone are the days of caring about tech blog coverage. Like I'm starting to see entrepreneurs who are like, please don't breathe a word about what I'm doing because my plan is to penetrate the entire like Midwest or Georgia or whatever before anyone in Silicon Valley finds out about me. Because they care about different things, which I think is really, really great. And also I'm not hearing that, I'm sure everybody in here has heard, my strategy for growth is PR. Like if I could just get a TechCrunch article, I'll get 10,000 users, it'll be great. I'm not hearing that anymore. So I'm gonna talk about 3 that I've seen, which I'm really excited about. One is Justin Kan. So Justin Kan, as you know, started it became Twitch, but he started Justin.tv, which was arguably people mocked it. I don't know if you remember, but they're like, people are walking around with cameras on their head, streaming their events, whatever. So Twitch was kind of like a Hail Mary. I don't know if you know the history of Twitch, but basically they were running out of ideas of what to do with Justin.tv, but they did notice that people were streaming sports events, and they were streaming interesting things, and those were getting a lot of traction. So as a Hail Mary, they decided, okay, what happens if we stream sports events? But it turns out you can't legally do that. So they were like, okay, well, there's these video game people that are watching people playing video games. So like, what happens if we stream that? So Twitch was not at all what Justin set out to do. He created this very much egotistical, sort of, I'm gonna walk around and show everybody my life and my food and that sort of thing. But now he's come back, he's had a tremendous exit, and he's trying to reimagine what a law firm looks like with Atrium. And he's thinking big, and I think that's really, really exciting. Also, Ben He, I don't know if you guys know Ben He, but he started I Can Has Cheeseburger. And he made the world laugh, and there's a lot of value in that. Like memes are incredibly valuable in that regard. But now he has a company centered around lowering the cost of building housing. And part of this was he took a year off and he traveled and he found himself and he went back to his roots. His family comes from a construction company. And he's like, I'm gonna go from internet memes to enduring structures. I'm gonna try to figure out how people can afford housing. And he spent a lot of time trying to figure out what is broken about building housing. And it turns out the cost of labor is one of the biggest issues. And so he's starting with building, housing from sort of the free, you have to talk to him about this, but the prefab model of building housing he found was also broken. So he's building structures from the inside out using robotics. And the other company I'm gonna tell you about, which will segue into sort of a topic I wanna talk about with you guys, is a founder who is 78 years old, and that will become important in a moment. He invented the Steadicam as well as the Skycam. So any sporting event that you see where the sweeping motion across the field was invented by Garrett Brown. And any movie that you see with like basically camera film people running, that was also created by Garrett Brown. So he made some amazing things. And his father ended up in a nursing home, and he noticed that his health completely deteriorated as soon as he ended up in a wheelchair. And so he said, I'm next in line to go into a nursing home, so I want to reimagine the wheelchair. And so he came up with this wheelchair that goes from a seated to a standing position with the same ease of a Steadicam, like using many of the same mechanisms that Steadicam has. And what this does is it allows you to have circulatory benefits of standing while being able to go around your house and do things like open a cabinet that's up high. These are things that people can't do when they're recovering from surgery, when they get older. And a lot of people, walkers are stigmatized, and a lot of this stuff is incredibly stigmatized. So it has the beauty of an Aeron chair. I mean, it's really beautiful. And, we're fortunate to have invested in all 3 of those companies. And I'm seeing things that are straight up science fiction, things that you can't believe you're seeing them. And part of it is because, it's been written about, but people have been quietly toiling away at it. And I wish I could talk about some of those things, and hopefully someday I can get up in front of you and tell you about some of these companies when they come out of stealth. But there's things that I'm seeing that just are hard to believe. People are starting to tell me, I was born to do this, which is very different than I'm gonna make a lot of money. I'm gonna sell this thing to Facebook or Google. We're gonna have an acqui-hire, we're gonna exit for whatever. All of the various things that we've heard. I love hearing that. They're just I was put on this planet to do this problem. And these problems are big. And when you look in their eyes, you see that look. And it's just like, you'll think I'm crazy, but I figured out something no one else has. You guys know the look, right? The crazy look. But sometimes you know, investors, when they come, or sorry, entrepreneurs, when they come in and talk to you, they tell you that they figured out something, but you don't really believe them. You're just like, are you really passionate about this? Do you wake up in the morning and go to sleep at night and think about this? Now I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see it again. It's something that's been missing in people's eyes for a while. Again, doing it below the radar, trying to be sustainable. So how do you find these people? If they were below the radar and you know, you can't find out about them because they're not creating profiles. Maybe they're not even creating AngelList profiles. It's about relationships. They matter more than ever right now. And so I think that a lot of them are going back to investors that helped them out in the past. And they're basically, you know, asking them to become involved in their next round of funding. So I suggest you reserve some money for these ideas. Some of them are capitally intensive. They don't grow quick. They're not quick and flip apps. Many of these founders were already acquired once or twice. They don't want to be acquired again. And that's one of the first things they'll say is, I'm going to build a company that's going to be massive. And I'm never working for Google again. So last thing I want to talk about, going back to the founder in his 70s, is sort of our young Zuckerberg obsession seems to be kind of over, which I'm pretty excited about. I completely disagree with Vinod that 45-year-olds are incapable of having original, new, good ideas. I think that could be a reflection of him. So shots fired, sorry, Vinod. I would like to end ageism in investing. I think we need to expand our thinking, just like with the wheelchair company. I'm starting to find that, you know, founders that we don't write about. We are so obsessed about, we have the 30 under 30, the 20 under 20, and you know, soon we'll have the 10 under 10. Where's the 60 over 60? So I'm actually spearheading an effort for the 60 over 60. If you guys know anyone over 60 who's working on something awesome, please tell me. There's a company called ODG. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but they make the best AR wearable I have seen on the market. Maybe at some point Magic Leap will come out of stealth and we'll see what they're working on. But they don't lack energy. These people aren't dead, you know. We need to think big again, and we need to think about how we think about our entrepreneurs. You know, I like them young and scrappy so they don't sleep, sure. They'll build big things, but entrepreneurs come in all forms. They come young and old. And so, you know, that's one of the things I want to talk about is that a lot of these people I'm seeing that are coming back the second time around or third time around are 40 plus. And 40 in our world is considered old. And so I think that we need to stop that. And part of it is just working on ways to celebrate, including talking to press people, highlighting people that you see that are older. And, you know, oh, I was going to end with one thing. So I have a company that I invested in where the founders are all over 50. And they're doing something incredible, has an amazing moat. It's an amazing business. They went out to fundraise, and you wouldn't believe the phone calls I was getting. I was getting calls from other investors, and they said, yeah, you know, the company's really interesting, but boy, they sure are old. You know, and I'm like, why does that have anything to do with anything? But it does in some people's worlds. And so I'm hoping that everyone from here will leave and think about this issue, because ageism in engineering, ageism in investment, it exists. And I think that, you know, I certainly hope that people won't look at me when I'm 65 and tell me that I don't have any more ideas left and I'm incapable of doing things. So let's reimagine the future and think big again ourselves. Thank you.